She gave me 30 minutes to pack, claiming we were moving in together, but I found her packing for someone else. She called me at 8:12 a.m., the exact kind of hour when your brain is still soft and your day can be rewritten by a single sentence. "We're doing it," Lyra said, her voice fizzing, breathless, like she was running down a hallway. "Pack the essentials, 30 minutes. The truck's on its way. I already tipped them. We're moving in together today." I stared at my coffee mug, as if the ceramic could verify reality. 30 minutes was a dare, a magic trick, a test I didn't know I'd been studying for. I said, "We didn't sign anything yet," and she laughed that bright, sugar rush laugh. "Sweetheart, the ink is the least important part. Trust me." Then the call cut off with an exhale and a ping, like a cork leaving a bottle. Time suddenly turned carnivorous. I have a superpower for following schedules. I build timelines for a living, tie knots of dependencies, and quietly keep chaos from winning. But love plus urgency is a different shape. I flipped open the suitcase that used to be my breakup suitcase, the one you keep just in case, and became a grabber, a scooper, a man stuffing socks into holes between books and cables like I was plugging leaks on a sinking ship. The apartment was small enough that every step was a repeat. Toothbrush, charger, work laptop, 2 shirts that made me look like I slept, the jeans I got in Lviv. I cued the washing machine to spit clean towels and then canceled it. No time. 30 minutes felt like an ultimatum written in dry erase across my life. The kettle clicked off by itself and made me jump. I pretended my heart wasn't running. I taped a box and the tape screeched like a gull. The smell of cardboard and dust rose up and made a story in my head. 2 people who were finally picking each other, and a little mess was just proof. Every romance, I told myself, needs its leap. I made piles. Keep, donate, leave for the new tenant. A t-shirt with a paint handprint from the day Lara and I redid her shelves. A cracked mug. 30 minutes kept melting. Katya sat on the edge of my bed, tilting a stack of books toward me. 2 boxes, she said. The rest later. And ask for the lease. I nodded like a good student and kept moving. When my phone buzzed, my bones answered before my brain. "Downstairs in 5, Lara wrote. "Truck came early. Efficiency. See, we're already a household." I dragged the suitcase into the hall and knew, by its weighted sigh, that I had packed my whole trust in it. The elevator mirror found a man who looked like a before and after ad in one face. On the ground floor, the concierge offered me a pair of flattened boxes with a pity smile. News travels by posture. When the truck pulled up, Lara hopped out wearing a zip-up and a hair tie. She always snaps when she's focused. She ran to me, kissed me quick, like a stamp. "You did it," she said. And the pride in her voice stroked some small dog in me that always wants to be good. "Address?" I said, trying to make it light. "Surprise," she sang. "Trust exercise. I handled everything." I laughed because the alternative was to be the heavy one, the man who turns the lights on at a party to count chairs. We loaded my 2 boxes. Mine looked shy next to the hungry mouth of the truck, and then she waved at the driver to go. "We'll swing by to get my clothes," she said. They packed early. Her phone kept buzzing. She flipped it face down and tucked it under her leg, the way you do when you want a secret to sit still. I told myself her efficiency was a gift, that this speed was how she kept doubt from getting its claws in us. "You okay?" she asked, reading the crease between my eyebrows like a line of code. "I'm okay," I said. "This is fast." She grinned. Exhale on my neck. "It's the only way I know to beat fear," she said. "Short runway, takeoff or nothing." The city scrolled by in fragments. A kid on a scooter racing a pigeon, an old man carrying an entire plant on the tram, the river wincing under wind. Lara did that thing where she braided talk topics like rope. How we'll combine our mugs, what to do with my dumb lamp, if her espresso machine can live on the counter, how we should make rules for chores so we never scorekeep. "I read a book about it, we'll be adults about it," she said. Then a quick pivot to "I love you," and a kiss against the air. I swallowed questions like fish with sharp bones. The lease, the utilities, the deposit. Each time I got one to my tongue, she kissed it away. "Later," she said. "Let's make the arriving first." She had a printed list in her back pocket. I saw it when she pulled out cash for the driver. Bullet points, check boxes. I leaned, curious, the way you lean towards something you want to be part of. The only items I read before she tucked it away: wardrobe, vanity, plants, ceramics, linens, all words that belonged to her. No desk, no router, no bookshelves. I told myself she was just listing the obvious, that my things were inside the category, everything else. And anyway, we'd figure it out at the new place. Love lets you do creative accounting. Traffic broke, and we slid into a neighborhood of new glass ribs and tidy trees, a zone I had never lived in. Lara's knee kept nudging mine as if to say, "You're here." Don't drift. We turned under a porte-cochere where a man in a dark jacket took photos of license plates, and Lara lifted her chin at him like a person who belonged. He waved us through with bored grace. 15 floors, she chirped, and told the driver, "Loading dock B." The truck seemed to know the way. I pressed my palms together to keep from asking a last round of practicals. When the door rolled up, I saw rows of neatly taped boxes with Lyra written in fat marker on their tops, a child's name above each crown. Some had FRAGILE stickers. One had a post-it that said, "Bedroom left." My name wasn't hiding anywhere. I stood there, holding an extra roll of tape like it could be a weapon. "This is the staging dock," she said. "Then we go to ours." She strode into the fluorescent light, fast, a conductor late to a downbeat, and greeted a man in a vest with an easy pre-made smile. "We're here for the rest," she said. He flipped a clipboard. "Name?" he asked. "Lara," she said, and leaned in toward the list the way you lean toward your own reflection. He pointed at a note and nodded. "Apartment 1521, he said. Lara wheeled on her heel and smiled at me. "Soft." "Almost there," she said. Her phone buzzed. She glanced, then completely unfussed and casual, said into it, "We're downstairs. Coming now?" "Great." The voice that answered was a baritone I didn't know. The elevator opened with a sigh, and my stomach fell in like it had missed a step. Lara took my hand and squeezed it as if to transmute hesitation into heat. "You trust me?" she asked, its own ritual line. And I answered yes because I wanted to live in the yes. The elevator walls were mirrors, and we multiplied. Me with my suitcase, her with her list, and behind us the reflection of rows of boxes with only her name. The doors closed. Somewhere above us, a man I'd never met was coming now. I kept my mouth shut so my voice wouldn't shake. While it told the truth, I hadn't yet worked up the courage to say, I didn't know what address we were really riding toward, only that it did not feel like mine. The elevator hummed upward, a coffin-sized box hauling us toward whatever waited above. I could feel her hand warm in mine, steady, almost tender. But the words, "coming now," echoed in my skull. The mirrored walls showed us multiplied. Me with my suitcase, her with her clipboard list, and not a single reflection where I looked like I belonged. When the doors opened, the air changed. Colder, filtered, smelling faintly of lemon and paint. A man was waiting at the end of the hallway, leaning with a casual kind of patience. Mid-30s maybe, crisp shirt tucked into tailored pants, the sort of look that telegraphs authority without trying. His phone buzzed. He tucked it into his pocket when he saw us. "You made it," he said, eyes flicking from her face to mine, then sticking on the suitcase like it was an unwelcome guest. "This is Ilya," Lara said quickly, her tone bright but too rehearsed, like a presenter trying to rush through the intro slide. "He helped me get some things together." I offered my hand. He hesitated, then shook it with a politeness that felt like a performance review. "Artem," he said, and then turned his focus back to her. "Everything's ready upstairs." The way he said it, the weight on upstairs, landed wrong. Like this wasn't a beginning, but a continuation. Like I had stumbled into Act 2 of a play where the roles had already been cast. The movers appeared from behind him, carrying boxes I recognized from the loading dock. The handwriting was hers. Her neat block letters. Lara. Kitchen. Lara. Closet. One of them brushed past me with a wardrobe box so tall it tilted toward my shoulder. I glanced down at the stack still on the dolly. Not a single mark with my name. No books, no desk, no fragments of me. "Wait," I said, throat tightening. Where's our stuff?" Lara's smile stretched too wide. "Baby, this is just staging. We'll bring yours later. Don't make the movers wait." She tugged at my wrist, trying to pull me toward the open apartment door, where fresh paint gleamed and a massive floor-to-ceiling window cast sharp squares of light across the hardwood. But Artem spoke over her. "I thought you said you'd already cleared everything with him," he said, voice low, clipped. My pulse stuttered. "Cleared everything, him." My ribs locked. She let go of me, spinning on him like a cat caught between doors. "I did," she insisted, hands slicing the air. "I told you he's fine. He's supportive. Right, Ilya?" I stood frozen in that bright hallway while the movers tramped back and forth. Their boots thudded. Their tape hissed. Her name sprawled across every cardboard wall. My suitcase suddenly looked laughable at my feet. A child's duffel compared to the fortress of her belongings. "Supportive of what?" I finally asked, voice cracking. She exhaled, long and sharp, like air leaving a balloon. Then she gave me that wounded look. The one she always used when I pressed too hard. "Of me moving forward," she said carefully. The words rolled out like dice across a table. Artem's jaw flexed. "Lara," he muttered, warning. But it was too late. I heard it, the click of the trap shutting, moving forward, not moving in together, not our apartment, just her, walking briskly into a future I hadn't even been invited to. The movers pushed past again, carrying a box labeled fragile. My reflection caught in the tape, warped and stretched. Lyra touched my arm, soft this time, as if softness could hide the steel underneath. Don't overthink this, okay? We'll talk later. Artem's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, then at me. His eyes, for a split second, weren't polished. They were sorry. Then he slid the phone back into his pocket and turned to the movers. Bedroom first. I stayed planted in the hallway, the smell of fresh paint and lemon cleaner swirling into something acidic. The 30 minutes I had packed my life into were unraveling, one box at a time, in someone else's apartment, and the echo in my head grew louder with every step of the mover's boots. This was never for me. Lyra's voice reached back toward me, bright as ever, trying to stitch the moment together. Come inside, Ilya. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. But my feet refused, because I finally realized it wasn't our door I was standing at. It was his. The ride back was silent except for the faint rattle of my suitcase wheels against the van floor. Lyra sat angled toward the window, scrolling on her phone with the determination of someone who wanted the world outside to be louder than the one in here. My throat was dry, my chest tight, and every time I opened my mouth to ask, the words felt too fragile to survive the air between us. Finally, she turned, exhaling as though I had just accused her of something I hadn't yet said. You're making this into a drama, Ilya. You always do. I told you, we need a little space. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. It just means I need time to set things up. Set what up? I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was thinner, quieter. Our future, she said brightly, too brightly, like she was pitching me a product. You'll see. I'll get us the perfect place. We'll do it the right way. Don't you want that? The logic bent in on itself until it snapped. So today wasn't us moving in together, I said. She frowned at me like I was a stubborn child. I needed help getting my things over there, that's all. Don't twist it into betrayal. If you love me, you'll support me through this transition. We can take a short break. A month maybe. Let me breathe. The word break dropped like a lead weight in the van. My stomach turned. A break you already scheduled movers for? She sucked in air, eyes rolling, hands raised. God, you sound paranoid. Why do you always need to dissect everything? Why can't you just trust me? I almost laughed at the hypocrisy, but my voice cracked instead. Because nothing about this feels honest. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it, then flipped it face down on her thigh. You're impossible, she muttered. When we reached my building, she leaned over, kissed my cheek and whispered, Don't overthink it. We'll talk tonight. Then she was out the door, light on her feet, waving at the driver to go, leaving me with my suitcase in a hollow that rang louder than the street outside. Inside my apartment, the suitcase lay half unzipped on the floor. I unpacked slowly, trying to reverse the panic I'd stuffed into it. That's when I found it. A folded piece of paper crammed between two of my books. A receipt, creased and slightly damp. My eyes scanned the header and froze. Lease agreement. Signed by Artyom S. The date was last week, 7 days ago. I sat down hard on the floor. 7 days. She had already signed a lease with him a week ago. I snapped photos, sent them to Katya with shaking hands. She called almost instantly. Ilya, she played you, Katya said. Look at the timestamp. This wasn't spontaneous. This was staged. I wanted to deny it, to blame my paranoia. But the ink on the page didn't care about my feelings. It just sat there, black and absolute. Katya helped me dig deeper. Within minutes, she had screenshots from an apartment rental site. Same address, same photos Lyra had shown me weeks ago, except the listing had been marked rented last Tuesday, a week. While she was still talking to me about our future, she had already closed the door on it with someone else. That night, I messaged Lyra. Not anger, not begging, just a list. Where are my things? What address did you tell the landlord? How are we handling the deposit? Her reply came 20 minutes later. A meme of a cat tangled in Christmas lights, followed by a pink heart. I stared at it until the colors blurred. My chest felt hollow. I didn't sleep. My brain spun all night, grinding on the mismatch between her words and the paper in my hands. At dawn, I dreamed I was packing again, tape squealing across cardboard, except the tape fused to my fingers and mouth, binding me until I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I woke gasping. By mid-morning, another blow landed. A thick envelope wedged in my doorframe, a notice from our landlord. The lease on my apartment was being terminated, effective in 2 weeks. My name wasn't on the renewal. Lyra had handled everything, apparently, including signing off without me. My half of the deposit was gone, already rolled over into some new arrangement I hadn't agreed to. I sank into the couch, letter shaking in my hands, the irony pressing down. She had given me 30 minutes to pack my life, and now I had 14 days to prove I still had a place in it. And for the first time, the thought began to take shape in my head. Not of salvaging her or us, but of salvaging myself. I sat at my kitchen table with the landlord's notice spread out in front of me like a failed exam, the words blurred from rereading. Lease terminated, deposit retained, new contract filed under alternate tenant. My coffee had gone cold, but I kept sipping it, as if bitter liquid could steady the shaking in my hands. Katya came over, hair tied up, laptop under her arm. She didn't waste time with comfort. Okay, we need to separate feelings from facts. What do you have? I laid it all out. The receipt with Artyom's name, the rental listing screenshots, the landlord's notice. I scrolled through my phone, showing her the texts, the 30-minute countdown, the trust me voice messages. Katya's face was carved out of stone as she read, lips pursed, eyes sharp. She staged everything. You weren't a partner in this. You were the cover. The word cover stung worse than betrayal. First step, Katya continued, typing furiously. We talk to a lawyer, or at least get some tenant rights info. If your name was on the original lease, they can't just roll your deposit into a new contract without your consent. My stomach turned. She told the landlord we were both moving? Probably told him you agreed or that you'd left. Katya looked up, her eyes softer. We're going to fight this smart. Facts, not feelings. She wins if you blow up emotionally. That night, I combed through everything again. Dates, times, attachments. A timeline took shape, neat as a project chart. Lara toured the new apartment while we were still making our Pinterest board. She signed with Artyom 7 days before the 30-minute call. Movers were booked 3 days ahead. The entire emergency was theater to keep me blind until it was irreversible. And then, a discovery I hadn't expected. In the pocket of my backpack, clipped to a keychain, was a tiny round tracker, the AirTag she'd bought me last fall. So you'll never lose your stuff. I had forgotten it. My phone buzzed when it detected the tag. Location: 15 floors up in that shiny new tower. Not just moving boxes, my bookshelf, my grandfather's old chess set, things that were mine. I sat there in the dark, screen glowing in my palm, pulse thundering. She hadn't just staged a future with someone else. She had physically carried pieces of me into it. I wanted to storm over, hammer on the door, demand my life back, but Katya's voice replayed in my head. Facts, not feelings. So instead, I started building my own arsenal. I drafted a calm, precise letter to the landlord, citing the lease terms, attaching evidence that I hadn't agreed to termination. I archived all of Lara's messages. I uploaded screenshots, receipts, even the audio recording of her call. 30 minutes. Pack now. My desktop filled with proof like an investigator's corkboard. 2 days later, a knock at the door startled. A courier stood there with a large box. The label said my name, but the sender, Artyom. Inside were my books, neatly stacked, with a small note on top written in his hand. I'm sorry. We should talk. The apology wasn't hers. It was his. That small slip told me everything. He knew, at least partly, what game she'd been playing. He wasn't complicit. He was another piece on her board. I set the note down, heart pounding. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel powerless. The truth wasn't just mine anymore. Someone else had seen it too. And for the first time, I wasn't the one asking for 30 minutes. I was the one who had time, and the facts, to decide what to do next. I met Artyom in a cafe 3 blocks from the glass tower where my bookshelf and chess set had been dragged without my consent. He was already seated, posture straight, jacket folded neatly beside him like he was holding himself together with ritual. When I walked in, he stood, extended his hand, and for the first time since this circus began, I saw something honest flicker in his eyes. Embarrassment. Thank you for meeting me, he said, voice low, measured. I figured you deserved an explanation. I sat palms damp, my phone buzzing against my thigh with Katya's last text. Stay calm. Let the facts speak. Artyom didn't waste time. Lara told me you two had broken up weeks ago. She said you'd already moved on. That today was about her finally closing that chapter. She made it sound tragic, but necessary. He grimaced. I believed her. Until I saw your face in the hallway. I slid the folded lease receipt across the table. She signed that while telling me we were planning a future together. He stared at the paper, jaw tightening. I should have known. The timeline never added up. She'd dodge details, gloss over questions. I wanted to believe. I pulled out my phone, opened the archive I'd built. The call recording, the 30-minute text, the landlord's notice. I let him skim through. No commentary, just evidence. When he finally looked up, his expression was carved from regret. She was playing us both. For a moment, silence stretched, filled with the hiss of the espresso machine behind us. I studied him. The man who had unknowingly stepped into my life like an understudy handed the wrong script. I wanted to hate him, but instead I felt something stranger, recognition. We were both collateral. Artyom exhaled, long and heavy. "I'll handle my end," he said. "I'll make sure you get your belongings back. And the deposit. She can't keep pretending you're not entitled to it." It should have felt like a victory, but part of me ached. "Why?" I asked. "Because she's been living two stories at once," he said quietly, "and I'm not willing to be in either anymore." That night, Lara launched her counterattack. It began with a flood of texts, pleading, angry, dismissive, all at once. "You embarrassed me. You're twisting things. Artyom's confused. We were fine until you poisoned it." Then came the Instagram stories, all curated vulnerability. Photos of packed boxes with captions like "fresh starts are scary but necessary." Selfies with swollen eyes captioned "betrayal," cuts deep. Messages poured in from mutual friends. "What happened? Did you really leave her stranded?" Katya called it perfectly. "She's trying to control the narrative. Don't play defense. Let the receipts do the talking." So I stayed silent. I sent the landlord my official claim with every attachment neatly arranged. Within a week, he replied, my portion of the deposit would be refunded directly, citing documented misrepresentation by the co-tenant. It was clinical, bloodless, but it was justice. Meanwhile, Artyom sent me a brief text. "Thank you. I see it clearly now. No embellishment, no explanation, just a man closing his own chapter." The final blow came on a Thursday evening when my doorbell rang. Lara stood there, hair messy, eyes red, clutching her jacket like armor. "You don't understand," she began, voice trembling. "I panicked. I thought you'd back out, so I created urgency. I needed you to leap before you thought too much. I thought if I kept moving, you'd come with me." I let her words hang in the air. Her face was streaked with tears, but my chest stayed still. "You stole my things," I said flatly. "I was going to bring them," she whispered. Artyom's place was easier. He made it simple, but you're the one I love." The lie collapsed under its own weight. I shook my head, hand on the door. "I won't be your spare option. Not anymore." Her eyes widened, desperate. "Don't do this, don't throw us away." But I closed the door gently, the click of the latch louder than any scream. I leaned against it, heart pounding, but also, strangely, calm. For once, I wasn't reacting to her timer, her deadlines, her chaos. When I checked my phone later, the tracker app showed the dot from my bookshelf had gone dark, either turned off or tossed in the trash. It didn't matter, because for the first time, the only timeline I was following was my own. 2 weeks later, the apartment was nearly empty. My boxes were stacked by the door, labeled in my own handwriting this time. No panic, no 30-minute deadline, just a quiet rhythm of sorting and choosing. The landlord had wired my share of the deposit back, and with Katya's help, I'd found a small but bright place on the other side of town. Not glass towers or polished lobbies, but a fifth-floor walk-up with windows that actually opened and a balcony big enough for 2 chairs. On moving day, Katya showed up with a toolbox and a sarcastic grin. "Don't say I never build your future with you," she said, balancing a shelf on her shoulder. We worked until our arms ached, laughing at the wobbly screws, drinking cheap soda on the bare floor. When the last box was unpacked, she patted the new mattress. Firm, clean, bought with the return deposit. "This is yours," she said. "Not hers, not his. Yours." The first night in that apartment, I lay awake listening to the hum of the city outside. No timer, no phone vibrating with frantic texts, no pressure to leap before looking, just silence, and the slow realization that it was mine. Artyom sent one last message a few days later. "I've left." She asked for another chance, but I chose honesty. "Take care of yourself." I stared at it for a long time, then deleted the thread. We had both been caught in her urgency, and both of us had stepped out. That was enough. A week later, an envelope slid under my new door. Inside was a letter from Lara, pages long, her handwriting uneven. She wrote about fear, about being terrified of being abandoned, about thinking if she kept people sprinting, they'd never have the chance to stop and see her flaws. She said she loved me. She said she loved him too. She said she was sorry. I read it once, folded it back into the envelope, and placed it at the bottom of a drawer. I didn't reply. Some stories don't need epilogues. One morning, while unpacking the last of my kitchen things, I found the cracked mug she and I had bought at a flea market months ago. The chip at the rim had always made her laugh, claiming it gave the mug character. I set it on a shelf in my new kitchen, not to drink from, but as a reminder of what I ignored, of what I survived, and of what I would never settle for again. A few days later, walking home with groceries, I passed the shiny glass tower where it all had collapsed. The concierge was outside on a smoke break. He caught my eye, squinted, then gave a small nod. No words, just the recognition of someone who knew a fragment of the story. I nodded back and kept walking. When I reached my building, I climbed the 5 flights, my legs burning, heart thumping. I unlocked the door and stepped into the apartment filled with afternoon light. The balcony doors opened to the hum of the street. I set down the groceries, poured water into that cracked mug, and stood there a while, listening to nothing but the quiet. It struck me then, she had given me 30 minutes to pack for a future that was never mine, but it had only taken 30 minutes of silence. My silence, to choose something better, my own life, on my own time. No countdown, no rush, just me, and that was enough.